Haruku, who was once part of the hero's party, but because his strength was too miserable, he was kicked out. The sage, who had never liked him, set up a magical barrier and threw him a piece of worthless scrap metal, mocking him by saying that if he couldn't even break such a weak barrier, what use was he? Haruku had a divine blessing as his guide, granting him natural skills and power, but this same blessing prevented him from growing stronger through leveling up. In simple words, he was insanely powerful at the start, but turned into a worthless chicken later on. So the sage, burning the bridge after crossing it, forced him to leave his equipment behind and get lost. Haruku's pride was shattered, and in anger, he strapped on his divine boots, left the party, and changed his name to Red, becoming a D-rank adventurer in a border town. Though he could never be the world-saving hero again, he dreamed of one day opening his own shop. In this world, everyone is born with a divine blessing that determines their life's path. Warriors receive blessings that boost combat ability, mages get magical powers, and Red's blessing granted him the strongest late-game skills, which basically meant he could do everything but master nothing. Thanks to this, he could identify herbs with ease, and after gathering some herbs and returning to town, he was stopped by a B-rank adventurer, Yar, whose party was heading into the mountains to hunt a powerful foe. They wanted Red to guide them through the forest. Hearing that doing so could promote him to C-rank, Red firmly refused, saying he just wanted to live as a plain salted fish. That night, the carpenter Gons came to him, begging for help because his younger brother Tanta had fallen ill with white-eye disease and a high fever, and the only cure was a rare herb from the mountains. Even though going there alone could get him expelled from the Adventurers Guild, Red decided to risk it for Tanta. With buffs stacked, he reached the foot of the mountain, but the forest had already caught fire. Red immediately realized Yar's group must have used fire magic. He rushed into the burning woods, gathering the herbs as quickly as possible, but then the very monster they were supposed to hunt appeared. Even retired, Red wasn't about to back down, so he slashed it down instantly and ran back, managing to cure Tanta's illness. To thank him, Gons built him a shop, and Red's pharmacy finally opened. Meanwhile, a blonde beauty arrived in this remote town. What kind of sparks would she strike with Red? She not only offered herself, but even wanted to move in with him. Red's luck was overwhelming. The blonde's name was Rit, a princess from another kingdom who had fled her home to avoid fighting her younger brother for the throne. They had first met in a tavern back when Red was still with the hero's party. When some thugs harassed her, she threw them down before Red could even step in. Later, she strutted up to the party, arrogantly declaring that she didn't need heroes because she could crush the Demon Lord's army herself. That same night, she confronted Red, mocking the party's pathetic intelligence-gathering skills. Red, being a straightforward man, asked her to share her intel and even bribed her with cookies he baked himself. Between his good looks and tasty treats, Rit gave in and spilled everything. Based on her intel, Red guessed their enemy was indeed the Demon Lord's army, but Rit still refused to cooperate with the hero. The next day at the War Council, she suggested leading a team to attack the Demon Lord's rear, but things went terribly wrong. The enemy disguised themselves as her mentor, infiltrated the meeting, and turned her plan against her, leading to heavy casualties. Luckily, Red arrived in time to save her. At that moment, the enemy commander revealed himself, and though they fought together, they were no match. Just when things looked dire, the hero finally arrived and defeated the commander, but Rit was left with deep trauma. She became terrified of battle and of seeing enemies fall. With Red's comfort, she regained her courage, though her arrogant tsundere side was shattered, and she started casually chatting with him. Eventually, Rit offered to work as his shop assistant, saying since no one visited anyway, she might as well help. Red said he was too poor to afford her, but Rit asked for nothing but food and shelter, boldly saying she didn't mind doing all the housework either. She even hinted she could share his bed, leaving Red awkward and flustered, never expecting to be forced into cohabitation. Though mocked as a late-game weakling, Red now lived happily with a beautiful woman at his side. Every morning, the first thing he saw was Rit's graceful figure asleep beside him, making him blush uncontrollably. After breakfast, he accompanied her to buy a bed since they were living together, and at the furniture store, the owner warmly welcomed them. When he heard they were cohabiting, his face turned shocked. Red tried to explain himself, but once Rit picked a double bed and ordered luxurious bedding, no excuse could wash away the truth. She was delighted, and Red explained that the craftsman's blessing level determined the quality of their work. In this world, blessings were not tied to birth, and the only way to raise one's blessing level was by fighting others with blessings, drawing blood. While they were shopping, Red saw Tanta being beaten by his friends. He immediately intervened, but one boy named Al still injured his knee. Red bandaged him up, but Al looked gloomy, confused why his friends' personalities had suddenly changed. Red explained that it was the influence of their blessings. His friends had blessings called Troublemaker, basically making them natural bullies who only knew how to fight, cause trouble, and cheat. If a person's talents matched such a blessing, their path toward crime was almost inevitable. And so, Haruku's new quiet life with Rit began, not as a world-saving hero, but as a small-town adventurer and shopkeeper whose blessing made him capable of everything yet master of nothing. Haruku listened with tears streaming down his face, worried that because his blessing was Weapon Master, he too might be doomed to end up like those violent thugs. But Red and Rit comforted him, telling him that although blessings affect one's personality, they are still just a part of oneself, and if controlled properly, they can become the greatest ally. The scene shifted as the two of them went to request a license to sell a new anesthetic. With no other way, Rit decided to use her connections and directly took Red to see the higher-ups, where they learned that the pair had actually been rejected due to bureaucratic negligence, which had already allowed counterfeit medicine to flood the market. The officials were frantic with work, but on Rit's account, they approved Red's license. Yet another problem still loomed. Promoting the new medicine would take time, and they needed a popular product to keep business alive. Inspired by Rit, Red mixed his strengthening medicine with apple syrup and baked them into cookies. The next day, Rit carried a basket of cookies through the streets while Red stayed at the shop selling them, and the medicinal cookies were such a huge success that they sold out in less than a day, leaving Red so overjoyed that he lifted Rit up high in his arms as they celebrated in sticky sweetness. Meanwhile, harmony was crumbling within the hero's party. Since the sage had kicked Red out, the big brute Danon grew increasingly dissatisfied, vowing to bring Red back. When the hero himself emerged from the tent and heard this, he immediately agreed, wanting to fetch his retired brother back. So while Red, expelled from the party, could never again be the world's savior, he now lived a blissful life cohabiting with a beautiful princess. Waking up each morning under the same roof as a fiery princess gave him sights too alluring to endure. But the ones who really couldn't endure were the trio of adventurers who had always worshipped Rit as their unreachable goddess, now crushed to see her with someone else. The short-haired girl even burst out crying and ran away, leaving Red and Rit dumbfounded. Suddenly, Rit declared she wanted honey wine, and after Red agreed, she went out to fetch it. Not long after, Yarbel showed up, suspecting that Red was the one who had slain the great foe, and tried to recruit him. But Red, cherishing his slow life with his beauty, refused to admit his victory. When Yarbel brandished his sword, Red acted like a rookie, pretending to fall on his butt in fear. At that exact moment, Rit stormed back in with her curved blade, knocking Yarbel flat on the ground. Terrified, Yarbel nearly wet himself and fled. Later that night, with the honey wine delivered, Red and Rit enjoyed a candle-lit dinner, and in the perfect mood, Red invited Rit to the sauna. Inside, when Gons heard they were living together, he teased Red to man up and make a move. Red, flustered, instead raised the steam's heat until Gons fainted. After the sauna, Rit sat in the hall, and the owner complained that a new bathhouse next door offered food, drinks, and entertainment, stealing away his business. Not wanting to see him close down, Red and Rit thought hard and finally came up with a solution. The next day, Red gave the owner a bag of herbs that could be boiled to produce steam with both relaxing and throat-healing effects, an ancient tribal therapy. Grateful, the owner gifted them a free sauna session, but it turned out to be mixed bathing, and as Red was about to sneak away, he gave in and stayed. Yet in the hot air and fire of desire, he only managed to overheat and faint. Still, the owner's business thrived, and Red would often drop by with friends for a steam. On their way home, Rit shyly confessed that in her homeland's custom, sharing honey wine meant becoming bound together forever, leaving Red trembling with excitement but too flustered to act, not even daring to hold her hand as they walked home. The next day, when they opened the shop, a group of fierce-looking men barged in. Red's misery seemed endless. Kicked from his party, lucky enough to gain a free wife, yet before the warmth even settled, rivals came to snatch her away. The scar-faced brute with nails in his boots was a guarantor from the Adventurers Guild who came only to demand that Rit return. As a vital force of the guild, she shouldn't be working for free. To lure her back, they promised a high salary, lofty titles, and even suggested offering a son to marry her, but Rit snapped, declaring that she had already signed a lifelong contract, and if they wanted to poach her, they'd have to wait until her next life. Meanwhile, Sherohai from the Thieves Guild came to Red, offering him money to leave Rit, but Red refused, declaring his love too deep and saying Rit was priceless, never to be taken away. Defeated, Sherohai slunk away. Hearing Rit say she wouldn't leave, Red was deeply moved and grabbed her hand tightly. With a token of love exchanged, Rit blushed shyly, never expecting their paths to lead to living together. In truth, her kingdom had been attacked by the Demon Lord's army, and they planned to pass through the Forest of Shadows for reinforcements, a place full of deadly crises. Red sought help from his female friend Dorara, but Rit grew jealous, drinking vinegar at the sight and later dragging Dorara out for a private talk. Under the excuse of bathing, Dorara assured Rit she had no feelings for for Red, only wanting to see him find a wife and live a happy, cherished life. Yet Rit still couldn't choose to stay, torn between rebuilding her kingdom and the hero Ruti. When word leaked that Red's group was crossing the forest, they faced the Demon Lord's army, and Red prepared to act as bait to let the others escape, something Rit couldn't accept. But Ruti insisted this was between her and her brother, not a place for the princess to interfere. With a hero so powerful, the Demon Lord's forces were torn apart, but Ruti's obsession left Rit knowing that if she pushed further, her life would be in danger. Yet who would have thought her escape from home would lead her to Red? It seemed almost destined. Still, the Thieves Guild wasn't done, sending a bald thug to persuade her, and this one didn't even bother with courtesy, barging right in with his demand. The bald thug came forward with a threat, saying if Rit didn't return to the Adventurers Guild, he would expose her presence to her younger brother. But Rit didn't care at all. Nothing could stop her from being with Red. Soon, members of the heroes' party arrived in the remote town as border adventurers, and not only did the princess loosen her guard, but their business also flourished. While Red was out delivering medicine to a client, news spread from next door that the new drug approved by the council had caused poisoning in people who took it. After saving those victims, he rushed home and told Rit about it over dinner. Red decided to prepare antidotes just in case, while Rit wondered who had smuggled such dangerous medicine into town. But they both agreed it was none of their concern and went out together for some leisure. Riding a dragon to the riverside, Red pitched a tent, only to turn and see Rit stripping down in front of him. He tried to act calm but blushed instantly when he turned his head. They splashed in the water, sat on the bank, and began chatting. Rit complained that Red was impossible to flirt with. She had teased him, stripped, waited so long, and he still didn't even hold her hand. At that moment, Red finally held her hand, explaining he wasn't unaffected, only too shy. Hearing this, Rit became even more forward, teasing him about when he would finally make a move. Returning to the shop, they barely had time to relax before a chaos broke out at the door. Rit went outside and found Yarble's teammates attacking civilians, but strangely, though they had a thief's blessing, they wielded a warrior's axe. Something felt wrong, and more enemies surrounded them, yet their strikes were blocked. Then Yarble appeared, slaughtered those men, and when he and Rit locked eyes, hatred boiled between them. Yarble taunted her with nonsense, and though she burned with killing intent, Rit eventually dropped her weapon to calm herself. Still, the reason behind the adventurer's madness remained a mystery. Red suspected the drug, but lacked proof. Elsewhere, Danon met the cloaked man Bowie in a tavern, who invited him to search for Red together. That night, Red brought Rit warm milk and drifted into memories of his childhood, when Ruti had already awakened the hero's blessing. Though she was weak, Red had sworn to become a knight to protect her and fight by her side. His memories broke when a knock sounded at the door, and he opened it to find Al covered in blood. After saving him, Red learned that their friend Ademi had attacked Al's parents. Though their lives were spared, Ademi vanished afterward. Locals believed he fled after murder and stormed the guardhouse, but when Red and Rit went there, they heard a different story. The guard captain, Ademi's father, insisted his son was honest and incapable of killing despite his thug's blessing, and even Tanta vouched for Ademi's kindness. Red remembered the earlier riots and suspected the drug drove Ademi to violence, but the captain didn't believe it. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Red and Rit decided to investigate further. Back home, Red taught Al swordsmanship, and after a few rounds, Al glimpsed the world's deeper layers, wondering why someone as skilled as Red lived like a low-rank adventurer. But Red just said he enjoyed being a salted fish. Then Al recalled a strange old man had given him a sword that day. Meanwhile, Rit caught someone suspicious but was suddenly sprayed with sticky slime, making her sword stick uselessly. Just as she was about to be overwhelmed, Danon arrived to rescue her. Though his original aim was to take Red back, seeing Red's peaceful life, he let it go. Discovering that the attackers were demons, he stayed to investigate and exchanged intel with Rit, but after she left, Danon revealed a sinister grin.